Welcome, welcome, welcome back to From Middle Class to Millions. I'm going to jump right into it. I'm going to talk today about a client that I used to work with back in 2021. I mentioned this on social media that I was on the phone with her earlier this week and that she wants to do some more stuff with me. Why? She knows me, she trusts me, she had great success before, and it's time. And so I'm going to give you some background on the work that I did with her back in 2021 and what we're going to do now in 2026. And it's going to be really exciting. I'm excited for her. But before I jump into that, I want to talk about the webinar. If you guys recall, I had a webinar at the end or mid-December, I would say, of last year, because we're in a new year, and I'm going to do it again. I'm going to do it again because it was so successful. There were so many good questions. There were so many, we were on for an hour where I was talking and answering questions, and then we stayed on for an additional hour. And that tells me that you have questions and you want to talk to somebody who's been where you've been and where you want to go. Listen, I worked a 9-to-5 job. Okay. I worked a 9-to-5 job for a really long time, and I built up my own portfolio on my own while working a 9-to-5 job. And I have a regular life, but I have a lot of abundance in that life because there's a lot of money that supports me and the things that I want to do. And I'm proud of it. And I know that you guys want that too. You want that wiggle room. You want that freedom. You want to be able to do things without having to always wonder if there's enough for you to do it. And you also want to look out into the future because a lot of you know that women in particular are living a lot longer. All of us are living a lot longer. We're living a lot longer, a lot better, healthier lives. And you can't do that without money. So not only do you want to know if you're going to have enough, but you want to make sure that enough is going to last. And it's going to last beyond 65, 70, 75, 80. I want you to think about how far that money can take you so that you can live that full life for as long as you live that full life and that there's money there for you to live it. So I'm going to do this webinar again on Wednesday, January 21st at 7 p.m. Eastern. I'm going to leave the link in the show notes of this episode so that you can sign up. If you're on social media, all the places, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, I'm there, LinkedIn. You can find out more about the webinar. It's free. So sign up. You can't get in unless you register, but sign up and be there because one of the best things, not just hearing me, not just hearing a multimillionaire, self-made, first generation multimillionaire talk about how she acquired her wealth, but more importantly, you're going to be in the room with other people who have the same questions that you have, who want to know the same things that you want to know, who want to know how to get started, or if you've already started, how to preserve and grow your wealth. This is important. It's important now. It was important last month when I did it. It was important 10 years ago, but I want you to get started. So sign up. The link's going to be in the show notes. No reason not to attend. All right. Every now and again, I come on here and I talk about one of my former clients and I talk about why they came to me, what they did, what they were thinking, what the success was by the time we separated. And then, of course, I always like to talk about clients that I worked with years ago and where they are now. And what's beautiful about money is that it's a journey. You see, it's a journey. It is never over. I've been working on my money goals, my money plan for so long. It seems like forever to me. And guess what? I am not finished. I am always learning more things, new things, different things that makes me understand how money works. And if you're like me and you weren't born into money, okay, you weren't sitting at a dinner table where people were talking about investments. You weren't sitting around listening to people talking about all their business deals and the wheeling and the dealing and all of that. Then you had to learn this stuff from scratch. And it took me a while. I'm not going to lie. It took me a while to get to a comfortable place with my personal finances and then to start building wealth. But I'm still on that journey. So what I love is that when my clients come to me, no matter where they come to me in their path, they can come back and talk to me about, okay, guess what? I was there. Now I'm here. Now I want to go to the next stage. And usually when they come back the second time around, because I've had many repeat clients, they're coming back in a much different place, right? So let me tell you the story of, what should I call her? Because I never use anybody's real name. Let's call her Florence. Okay, Florence. Let me tell you the story about Florence. And I better write down Florence because I might slip up and say her name. Just joking, I won't. But I'll probably call her something else midway through this podcast. And then you're going to be like, who the heck is she talking about? All right, so let me tell you about Florence. And I want you to know that Florence is like many of you. Okay, she is, but when she came to me back in 2021, she was a high earning professional. She had 2 kids in college, but she had a lot of debt. She was carrying student loan debt for her children, and we'll get into that. But she also had credit card debt, a car loan. She was completely overwhelmed financially. She knew that she was doing everything that she thought she was supposed to do in terms of, she got her education, she was getting additional certifications, she was working really hard, but she still felt behind. No matter what she did, she felt behind. She's like, this isn't really how it's supposed to feel. This isn't what she believed she should be feeling at this stage in her life. And I want to tell you that this story is not about debt, okay? It's not about debt. What it's about is self-worth, boundaries, the curse of not talking about money to anybody, and about getting intentional. So I want you to know that this episode is for any one of you out there who's making good money, but you feel like it's leaking out everywhere and that you're not doing exactly what you feel you should be doing because things don't feel right. And there's this general underlying feeling of uneasiness. We are going to hear about Florence's feeling, about how she came into our relationship like that, and then how she felt when she left, and now what she's thinking and feeling as she's re-entering a relationship with me. All right, so let's talk about it. So like I said, Florence was making good money. You know what that's like. She was making good money, but no clarity about where it's going. I cannot tell you how many of my clients come to me and they're like, I just don't get it. And it's a feeling. And the bank account shows it, right? Like zero at the paychecks, making more and more money year after year, but still feeling squeezed every 2 weeks when they get paid. What the heck's going on? Plus the debt, multiple types of debt. And it wasn't just the student loans. And let me tell you about the student loans with Florence. The reason why Florence took on student loans for her kids was because her parents had paid for her to go to school. And she felt, well, that was the right thing to do. Okay. So this was I would call it a legacy decision and not a math decision. And sometimes, yes, we make legacy decisions. We make emotional decisions. We make decisions that aren't based on the numbers. And I get it. I'm not saying it's right. I'm not saying it's wrong. That's what she did. By the time she came to me, she had taken on these tremendous loans for her kids. And so guess what? We got to work within the confines of what we have, right? I wasn't going to turn her away. I wasn't going to berate her. This was a legacy decision. This is what she wanted to do for her kids. So, okay, let's go. So what did we focus on? I was like, let's pay off some of this other debt, especially the car, the credit cards. We had to get to work on those, particularly the credit cards, because the interest rates were exorbitant, right? We had to get rid of those. We got organized with the finances because I didn't know exactly what was going on. We had to get a full picture, and neither did Florence. So it took us a bit of time to get that all together, but we did it quickly because in 30 days, like I say, let's get this on the table. Let's figure out what's going on. And then we were able to create some breathing room. Okay? Because once we saw this is the debt, this is what's coming in, this is where the money's going, these are the expenses, we were finally able to make some decisions about how we were going to move out of this tight position into one where we could have some wiggle room. So sometimes the first win when we work together isn't immediate wealth. No, it's not like, oh, well, look at 30 days, I'm a millionaire. No, it's stability. It's emotional regulation by figuring out what the heck is going on. Now, this is where I want you to understand what was so fascinating about Florence, okay? because sometimes the work that we're doing when we're looking at your money reveals gaps in your confidence. And you may not even be fully aware of where those gaps are, or even the fact that these gaps exist. But sometimes just having the ability to talk to somebody about money will enable you to have some light bulbs going off, right? One of the things I noticed about Florence, she was working her full-time job in her profession, but she also had a couple of private clients. And what I noticed immediately is that she was dramatically undercharging for her expertise. And it was really difficult for Florence to even think about charging with more than what she was charging. I had to do the research with her in her area, with her level of expertise, and look at what other folks were charging for her to understand, oh my gosh, I'm giving away my services for free, but because I'm giving away my services for free, I'm unable to create any room in my life. I'm unable to create more opportunities for other people because my time is being taken up by the same number of people, but I'm not making a difference. I'm not making a difference financially for me, and I'm getting burnt out. Now, I want to be clear that the reason why Florence was undercharging, the reason why even when we were working together, she was looking at new opportunities and was uncomfortable negotiating her salary was mainly because women are conditioned to underprice themselves. There's no coincidence here. It's all conditioning. And because she was uncomfortable talking about money, that means she's uncomfortable negotiating her salary. That means that she was uncomfortable charging the rate that was commensurate with her area, with her level of expertise, and what the market could bear. So what we immediately had to do was work on that. We had to work on her raising her rates, which led her to start attracting clients that were more aligned. And then her business became actually viable. This little side hustle became a viable business. It wasn't just a nice to have anymore. It wasn't a jobby. It was actually something that she saw that was garnering some actual revenue that she could then use to accelerate her debt payoff. It was incredible. And that was simply by being comfortable talking about money. You see, debt wasn't the only thing that was holding her back. It wasn't the only thing that was preventing her from moving forward. Actually, what was really preventing her from moving forward was the fact that she was undercharging and that she was not charging her worth in terms of what the market could bear, her level of expertise, and what she could offer more aligned clients. So after all of that, after we sorted that out and Florence was able to make more money and quickly pay down her debt, I remember when she paid off her car and then she was chopping away at those credit cards really quickly. She felt more comfortable because she now knew what was coming in, what was going out. She had more of a handle on her spending and her expenses. She went off on her way. Off on her way. She felt good about what she was doing. But Florence called me not too long ago. And I had a great opportunity to speak to her. Usually I'm on the phone with you guys when I have a consult for an hour, but I was on the phone with Florence for 2 hours. And the reason why I was on with her for 2 hours is because I had some catching up to do. Because working with someone for 6 months, you get to know a lot about them, about their families, about their goals, about what's important to them. Yeah, we talk about money. Of course we do. That's why they come to me. But listen, at the root of all of what's going on in your life is money. It's true. But I also know a lot about life. I know a lot about you and your life and how you make decisions and how we can make the things that are most important to you happen with the money that you have. And I get to understand what's most important to you. And so there were a lot of things that I knew about Florence and her life and the things that had come up when we were working together. So we had to catch up on all of that stuff. But I also got to hear that business is thriving. She was like, you encouraged me to get this thing off the ground. You encouraged me to get it started. And that's all well and good. But I didn't work the business for her. Florence did. And was really proud of herself. I could hear it when she was talking about it. She said it, but I could hear it in her voice. You could hear how proud she was that she had built this business up and that it was lucrative. But she said, you know what? I'm still working per diem by choice with this other company, a company that she started working with back in 2021 when she negotiated that salary. And she said, you know what? I want to continue working with them because I like the people. I like the structure. I like the social interaction. She's like, I don't want to let it go. And I was like, listen, not everyone needs to quit their job to be successful. Listen, you do not need to quit your job to be wealthy. That's not my ministry. If that's what you want to do, if you're miserable and you got to get out there and we've got to build another stream of income, by all means, let's do it. But I'm not necessarily saying quit your job in order to become wealthy. I didn't. That same company that I worked for all those years, they were my number one investor. I used the money that I earned there to create wealth for myself outside of there. So I'm not going to tell you to quit. So I was like, listen, this is about options. It's not always about escape. So there were a lot of things that we were talking about that are kind of like the new issues that you get when you start building the business, right? So she was wondering, okay, this thing's growing. How can I build this business without burning out? How can I now start investing more intentionally? Because she had her 401k from the other job, but come on now. I'm not going to point any fingers, but I know there's some of you out there who have a 401k. You don't know what's going on in there. Don't lie. It's okay. It's fine. In the beginning, I didn't know what was going on in mine either. I didn't know what I was invested in. I don't know why I was invested in what I was invested in. I didn't know how it was performing. I didn't know how it was going to grow. I didn't know what was going to happen to it this year, next year, 5 years, 10 years. I had no clue. Right? And neither did Florence. She doesn't know either. She has a couple of those former 401ks floating around. She's got the current ones hanging out there. She's putting a little money into it, but there's no intentionality behind it. So she wanted to know, okay, how do I invest in this intentionally? And still, even though she's like, you know what? I'm making the money over here with my employer, but I'm making a good amount of money with my business, but I still feel squeezed. I still feel like it's not a lot. And she goes, I know I want to grow this business, but I don't want to turn around in another 5 years and find out that I'm no further ahead than where I am today. And that makes sense because that happens to a lot of people. If you were to look back and say, well, 5 years ago, I was making less money, and 5 years before that, I was making even less money, why is it that I'm no further ahead in terms of my net worth today? Why is it that I don't feel any more comfortable today? Yeah, we can factor in inflation. Yeah, we can talk about how things are more expensive, but let's get real. What's really going on? And that's what Florence wanted to look at. So I said, okay, look, this is what we're going to work on. Because these are the things that are most important to you. And because I understand you, because I know you, because you are open to coaching, because you're ready to get going, I know we can get this done. So this is what we're going to do over the next 6 months. First of all, these business systems got to be cleaned up because guess what? I know that she's been a little loosey-goosey with the cash flow in the business, and I know that there's some tax bills that are around the corner that she didn't prepare for. So we've got to tighten up our business systems. Yes, I work with personal finance, but guess what? If you're running your own business and your personal finance is a little messed up, then I can assure you that your business ones are as well, because you got the same brain, you're using the same brain. So we've got to make sure that this makes sense. So the business systems we got to get in place. The second thing is, I know Florence loves to travel. And so because Florence loves to travel, that is very important to her. It's very important that I keep that at top of mind. Now, she's paying a lot of money for travel, but she's not doing it strategically with rewards. She's paying cash, and she's got credit cards that aren't giving her any rewards, and she's got a business. I was like, we got to clean this up. If you're funneling everything through your credit card, now bear in mind, now she pays things off. So, she's not carrying a balance. She pays things off. I'm like, we've got to use those miles strategically. So that is the second thing that we're going to work on. to be honest, these aren't in any particular order. I'm just listing off the things that we're going to work on, and we're going to make sure that we get them all covered. We got to do a retirement cleanup, right? Like I said, there are a lot of these former 401ks that are floating around. She doesn't know what's where, what's in it, what it's doing. She doesn't know what she's being charged. She doesn't know anything about those. So we've got to clean that up. Plus the current 401k that she has that she's kind of contributing to, but not really. And is she getting the match? She doesn't even know. And again, doesn't know what they're invested in. So I'd like to get a holistic picture of all of those accounts because again, what are we doing? These are retirement accounts. Is there going to be enough money in there when you decide to retire? How are we going to figure that out? Well, we won't know if we don't know anything about these accounts. So we're going to get that all cleaned up. And we're going to organize it so that the money is actually working for her, right? And because she has the business, we can consider another 401k outside of her jobs 401k, right? So she can have a solo 401k that she can utilize as well to even put more money towards her retirement. Also, as she approaches, she's beyond 50, but as she approaches 60 to 63, if she's in that age range, then we can also use even more methodologies to increase the amount of contributions for her 401k. So there's a lot of stuff that we could do to focus on her retirement. Let's talk about those student loans. So these are not Florence's student loans. These are Florence's kids' student loans. She regrets taking them out. We're not going to cry over spilled milk. But what we're going to do is reframe the urgency, okay? We are not going to allow these student loans to crowd out any savings that Florence has to put aside for herself or any investments that Florence has to put aside for herself. Yes, are we going to pay the student loans back? Sure, we're going to do that, but not at the detriment of the savings and the investing. Okay? We understand the decision that was made. We understand why the decision that was made. Do we agree that that was the best decision? None of us do, but it has been done. So let's work within the confines of what we've done. I don't want you to continue to make decisions that could be detrimental to your financial stability, but we can work with what you've done. And then the last thing, but probably the most important thing, is we're going to talk about our boundaries, and we're going to work on that because we got to recognize that the time and the energy and the capacity that she has to build this business and work this other job matter just as much as income. I don't want her to burn out. I don't want her to start canceling trips because work's more important. That's no. She is very health conscious. And so I want that to be maintained. That is very important. I want to give you an idea of how important this is to Florence. She's so good that when she travels, she makes sure she brings her own food. She wants to eat clean. She really takes care of herself. Her mother's 93. This is a woman who could live a really long time. So not only do I want to make sure that she's taking care of herself and she doesn't burn out and that she feels good and looks good and it's healthy, but I also want the money that is needed to do that, to be there. And then I want the money that is needed to have that abundant life to be there as well. So, I want her to focus on that. And that's really important because more money doesn't automatically mean more peace. That's not what this means. What it means is that there's some new things that are going on in her life. Remember, I said this is a journey, and we're going to make sure that she is equally as comfortable, if not more, and more informed and more emotionally regulated to handle this new phase of her life. Because the thing is that people get confused about is you don't need a clean life to build wealth. If you're waiting for everything to be picture perfect, you're nuts. It's not going to happen. Life is complex. Okay. There's a lot of stress. There's a lot of uncertainty. There's a lot of things. There's caregiving. There's a lot of stuff that exist alongside the decisions that you have to make with money. And it gets to feel really overwhelming, particularly when you're right in the thick of things and you can't see the forest for the trees. That's where I come in because I can weed through all of that stuff. Not in an insensitive way, because what I take into account more so than anything else is what you want. I listen to how you're feeling. I know people like to say, oh, there's no feeling in the math and the money. I don't believe that. There is. But when you can slow down for 5 seconds, talk it through, have some options, and then make sound decisions, believe me, you feel much better. You can't pause your financial life until everything is perfect. It's never going to be perfect. Most of you already know that. But you can make progress on this journey. And you can do it in a way where you can set up systems so it's not all about willpower, so that when the bumps come, you don't go off kilter. You can have a strategy in place so you're not ashamed for any decisions that were made or that you may make in times where things get a little rocky. And you can have clarity instead of avoidance, because that's what we do. When things get scary, we get overwhelmed, a confused mind says no, and you just avoid it. You can still continue to build wealth while you're figuring things out. In fact, that is what I want you to do. That's what we do together. That's what I teach you to do. So when Florence got on the phone with me, and she's like, look, this is where I am. This is where I was. This is where I want to go. I was like, let's do it. Let's do it. Because I remember back in 2021, she was overwhelmed. But then she got organized. She was undercharging, as many women do, as we talked about, because you're working off of your conditioning. And unfortunately, your conditioning says you should give everything away, all of your services. And so guess what? That's what she was doing. I can't tell you how many women have come to me who've done that. And think about it. You're working off of that conditioning that you should give away your services for free practically, where dudes are working off that same conditioning, but their conditioning tells them that they're supposed to charge, they deserve it, they're good at it, and that they should continue to do what they're doing and charge you for it. I don't want to send out false narratives. That's not what I'm saying. But I want you to have true confidence. And the true confidence only comes from competence. So when we talk about money, when you hear about money, when you feel confident about what you're doing with your money, guess what? You become confident. And then you're no longer reactive and you become strategic. I know that this is familiar to a lot of you. I know that many of you don't need more information. And in fact, what you need is a plan for yourselves. I know that a lot of you are out there making more, not having more net worth, not investing a little, not knowing what you're investing in, undercharging, underpricing, feeling intimidated, feeling disorganized, confused, and overwhelmed. This isn't a new story. Florence isn't unique. But what Florence is Florence is a starter. She's like, look, I started at this point on my journey. I needed some help. I needed someone to help me clarify these things, get myself in order here, and I did it. Now I'm on another part of my journey, and I'm damn proud of myself because I built this business that I didn't think I was able to do, that I didn't think would be viable, that I didn't think would provide me with enough revenue and profit that I could do anything with it, that moved it from a jobby to a real business. And now here I am, and I'm like, I want to do something else. I want more, and I'm not ashamed to ask for help. I want to invest. I want to build my net worth. I want the money to grow, and I want it to last. And the only way that I can do that is if I become strategic, if I become intentional, and I get to work. Listen, it's 2026. Florence knows she can do it. I want you to know that you can do it too. So this is what I want you to do. First of all, share this podcast, please, with all the women that you know, because we got to get the word out. We got to start talking about money. I talk to women about money every single day. Some are sheepish, some are squeamish, some are intimidated, some are not feeling very confident. Some are powerhouses in their own right, in their own parts of their world. But when it comes to money, things change. I want you to be confident with your money in 2026. I want you to feel like you're on a journey, and I want you to know where you're going. I get it. Some of you don't know where you are. I want you to know where you are, where you stand, and I want you to know where you're going. We're going to do that in 2026. You can start with the webinar on the 21st. It's Wednesday, January 21st at 7 p.m. You've got to register in order to get a spot in there. And come and talk to somebody who's doing the thing that you don't quite understand. right? Invest in yourself. In this case, I'm talking about investing the time. Okay, the webinar is free. It's free. So invest the hour. It may be a little longer. People like to talk. People like to ask questions. Bring your questions. Do it. Do it. Be there. I want to see you there. I want you to be the next Florence. I want you to understand that your money decisions impact you, but they also impact the people that you love. All right, guys, it was a pleasure speaking to you. I will be back next week, next Thursday. I hope to hear from you.